Bali will host yet another significant event as a part of the G20, this time focusing on cooperation of audit institutions of G20 countries. Rahmat Idris will bring us a special dialogue live from Nusa Dua, Bali, where the event will take place. Let's take a look.
Yeah, hello Stephanie. Here we are in Nusa Dua, Bali, Indonesia. Waiting with a bated breath for the upcoming prestigious and also a very exciting event. Yet another organizations coming in the our engagement group here as a part of Indonesia's G20 presidency, and that is the so-called Supreme Audit Institutions, or SAI20, which is scheduled to take place here in Nusa Dua, Bali on the 29th and the 30th of August 2022. So it was actually formed and initiated by our very own BPK, and that is the Audit Board of the Republic of Indonesia, a while ago in Labuan Bajo, one of the only 5 super priority tourism destinations in Indonesia. It is aimed to sort of bring together all of the crucial stakeholders of the audit institutions across the G20 member states to represent their respective institutions, to sort of come together, put their heads together and discuss some of the most significant insights in terms of processes and mechanisms of audits in their respective country, and ultimately elevate the so-called and elusive transparency and accountability, particularly for developing nations such as Indonesia and some other representing countries within the G20. And here we are to delve deeper into what to expect and what is in the store to be offered within the SAI20 summit here in Nusa Dua, Bali. I am extremely privileged and delighted to be sitting down in conversations with the Secretary General of the Audit Board of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Bahtiar Arif. Mr. Bahtiar, thank you very much for joining us in Focus today. We know exactly how busy you are, 1,001 things in your mind, and we're aware that some of the delegates have started to arrive today, more arriving on tomorrow, and in less than 48 hours, the opening ceremony.
Yes.
So how are things going so far? What are you putting things together in details to make sure that in 2 days, the opening ceremony will be a smooth sailing ordeal for the SAI20?
Yeah, thank you very much. So far, the preparation is quite going well, and now we are welcoming delegates from 8 Supreme Audit Institutions who will participate in the Supreme Audit Institution 20 Summit in Bali, and also 4 Supreme Audit Institutions will participate virtually. So actually, the preparations has been doing for the summit. We firstly did the technical meeting.
Yes.
Last January, and then we followed by the what we call senior officials meeting in Labuan Bajo.
Yes.
Last June.
Yeah.
And then after that, we were preparing some of the outputs that will be expected to be the output of the summit, which are rules of procedures, and also the communique, the draft of communique.
Yeah.
That is the substance of the summit.
Yeah, the communique is something that is always pretty much awaited right after deliberations of the G20, Mr. Bahtiar. But you mentioned a little bit about our senior meeting in Labuan Bajo, which I also mentioned at the beginning of my opening there, and that was such a defining achievement for our own audit board of the Republic of Indonesia. It is the first time ever for the G20.
Yes.
So tell us the story behind it. How did it come together, and what inspired our government to incite this institution?
Yes, since 1999, when the G20 was established, the Supreme Audit Institution has not been had like association or an engagement group within the G20.
Yeah.
So without contribution of the on the G20, so Supreme Audit Institutions has not followed, the progress of the G20. So after the pandemic began, and then we followed the impact of the pandemic on the economy, on the social, on the environment, and all the crisis, all aspects. So the Supreme Audit Institution would like to contribute to the G20 community. You mentioned that the G20 is the most powerful countries in terms of economy.
Exactly.
So that's why supreme audit institutions of the G20 members would like to contribute as to be a partner of the governments and other stakeholders of the G20
Right.
to participate to the G20 community.
Right. It's interesting, Mr. Secretary General, when you mentioned that this is a significant contributions of the audit institutions for the G20 in terms of the Recover Together, Recover Stronger theme that we push forwards. And which brings me to my next question to you. How does the so-called contribution is translated within the agenda of the entire deliberations and summit of the SAI20 here in Bali?
Yes, of course. So the SAI20 will focus on the two themes. The first is the accelerating of the economic recovery, and the second one is supporting the achievement of sustainable development goals.
Yeah.
So both themes have been impacted from the pandemic. So we would like to share our perspective on our roles as the Supreme Audit Institutions to audits on the economic recovery and also on the supporting of the achievement of the SDGs. So both teams will be have been discussed on the General Official Meeting, and we would like to discuss and approve the communique at the next the coming summit.
Yeah, because from the experience of our very own country, we do have some interesting findings in terms of the use of state budgets throughout the pandemic of COVID-19. And that is with the assistance and also the compliments from the President Joko Widodo saying that it has been great and major efforts from the BPK, our audit boards, to sort of reveal this and make sure that there is transparency and accountability to the use of state budget.
Absolutely. Interestingly, so at the next summit, we will also invite speakers from our ministries. And then we would like to invite the Ministers of Health, Minister of Health. He would like to share our experience in dealing with the global health issues. Availability of the vaccine, for example, and also the energy transition from the Minister of Energy, and also digital transformation from the Minister of Telecommunication and Information.
Right. Health, energy, and food crisis have always been one of the most common topics we find among the G20 deliberations. Mr. Secretary General, you mentioned a little bit about how these nations came together within the framework of the G20. We comprise of over 85% of world economies, and that is a huge number globally, meaning that within the G20 we have developing economies like Indonesia, Brazil, Mexico. We have developed economies like those Western countries and Russia's. Can you shed a light on us on the similarities and the differences of all of these developed and developing nations that we can sort of put our brains together for the deliberations of SAI20?
So I think the current pandemic have give us, some lesson learned how to cope with the global pandemic. So we would like to build collaboration. The future, the potential crisis cannot be handled by one single
country alone,
or also one single institution.
Exactly.
So we would like to collaborate with other G20 communities, not only government, but other stakeholders. Parliament 20, energy, women 20, youth 20. So we would like to build, to achieve what we call the agenda of 2030 on sustainable development goals.
The SDGs achievements. How will it contribute to the SDGs achievement? Because 2030 is not a long way from now, and the G20 is such a potential platform to contribute to this.
Yeah, so we would like to also to promote collaboration, we share our experience and knowledge among Supreme Audit Institution and with other stakeholders to participate on our, for example, from our mandate, we have to play our role in auditing SDGs. We have been giving something like a review on the voluntary national review prepared by the government before the government submit to the United Nations about the achievement of the SDGs. So other Supreme Audit institutions would like also to participate, sharing their knowledge and experience auditing SDGs in their own countries.
Right. When we talk about auditing, Mr. Bahtiar, Mr. Secretary General, in the past couple of years, some of the most notable and prominent ministries and government institutions, including our very own institutions of broadcasting, TVRI, have prided ourselves with the achievements of accountability and transparency. Do you think that this has become some sort of fresh breath of air in terms of how our government institutions, have a better goodwill, for lack of better words, to show and to manage the state budget financially?
So yes, actually, in terms of the accountability of the financial resources by the government, so it has been growing up the quality of the accountability of the government, represented by the opinion of the financial statement of the government. The government has obtained unqualified opinion from the Audit Board of the Republic Indonesia, meaning that the financial statement has been presented true and fair in all material respect according to the governmental accounting standards. So it means that the accountability of state finance, the quality is improving and achieving above the target on the what we call the government medium-term development plan. So it means that the accountability is growing up, the quality, and then we would like to continue our audit in terms of the quality of spending, for example.
Right.
The quality of spending to achieve the national goals.
And in the past couple of years, this has been a great indication that there is a step towards that particular goal.
Absolutely.
Right. So we have our big agenda ahead, Mr. Secretary General, the 29th, the 30th of August, SAI20. What can we expect? What sort of communiques and deliverables these delegates, these institutions can come up with at the end of the summit?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, that Supreme Audit Institution 20 is established to promote collaboration among Supreme Audit institutions and other stakeholders to promote more economic accountable governance, and then to provide to be a strategic partner of the G20 community to build what we call it the efficiency, transparency, accountability, and effectiveness of the public administration. So by establishing the SAI20, we would like to contribute to G20 community, especially for building a better governance on the G20 community.
Right. When we look inward to our own country's perspective, Mr. Bahtiar, what can we expect in terms of the betterment of accountability and transparency, which has always been a challenge, like I said, for developing and a growing nation, especially during the time of the pandemic and crisis?
Yeah, so it's a lot of lesson learned that we have been conducting in our role as auditing institution. So we would like to build not only the role of our Supreme Audit Institution, but also the role of other stakeholders to build better accountability, better transparency, and also better governance in our country.
Right. Just my last question to you to conclude our conversation, Mr. Bahtiar. We're aware that there are 3 key principles that are being pushed forwards on the tables for these delegates to deliberate on, and they are in the form of insights, oversights, and foresight. Would you care to elaborate more on these?
Yeah, let me explain briefly regarding the what we call it the maturity of audit institution. So we have like a model of accountable organization, accountability governance. So we for the bottom of the maturity of the audit institution is the role is what we call it CC. Combating corruption. That's the very basic role of the audit institution.
Exactly.
So the more mature audit institution will have a role as the assuring accountability, AA. Then more mature again, we will get audit institution with the what we call increasing, enhancing economy, efficiency, effectiveness. Those 3 roles
are intertwined, interconnected.
Of what we call it oversight function.
Then
after the oversight role of the Supreme Legislature, we would like to get a more mature audit institution,
Yeah.
what we call double I,
Double I.
increasing insight.
Increasing insights. And
And then the top one, if we would like to be audit institution, will provide what we call double F, facilitating foresight.
All right.
So to give, alternative policies for the government to get rid of the future crisis.
That's very interesting to hear. So where are we in this tier, Mr. Bhatia?
Yeah, actually,
if we
yeah.
can reveal to the public.
We would like to,
if it's not a
to be strategic, facilitating foresight,
All
but
right.
we have to
build the
strengthen,
foundations
to
from the
strengthen,
base.
to strengthen the foundation, combating corruption,
Yeah.
and also assuring accountability. Now we will move to the what we call enhancing economy efficiency, effectiveness,
Right.
quality of spending,
Yeah.
and then we would like to go to increasing insight and
Yeah. So we
facilitating
dream for
foresight.
the highest tier, and yet we have to go through all of these phases
Sure.
to ensure
Yes.
that we have a strong foundation of audit process.
Yes.
That's all the time that we have, Mr. Secretary General of
Thank
the
you.
Audit Board of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Bahtiar Arif. Thank you very much for your
You're
time
welcome.
on Focus today.
Thank you very much.
And as a matter of fact, Stephanie and our viewers also, we are delighted to inform you that we will be live coming to you on the morning of the 29th of August with the full coverage of the events of the Supreme Audit Institution 20, live from Nusa Dua, Bali, Indonesia. I'm Rahmat Idris. Let's head back to Jakarta to Stephanie, please.
All right, that was an insightful interview by Rahmat Idris from Nusa Dua, Bali.